Good evening. The airline industry is a significant economic and social force for development. And certainly this is true globally. But here in the region, how are we faring with this particular industry? This evening we're going to look at regional transport and where is it taking us? That's the question we'll be seeking to answer on this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm Jerry George. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Advantage inspires you to believe that the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Business Advantage with host Jerry George, mentoring the next generation of Caribbean entrepreneurs. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays on www.niceradio.info. For further information, email caribbeaninformationhub@gmail.com. Like the Business Advantage Facebook page or call 1-784-456-5967 to participate.
If you want the eyes and ears of your customers, then there's only one place, CaribVision, the authentic channel for all things Caribbean, bringing you Caribbean news, Caribbean sports, Caribbean entertainment, Caribbean travel and festivals. Advertise on the CaribVision platform, reaching across the Caribbean in over 21 countries, and now in the U.S. market on Cablevision in the New York tri-state area, and coming soon to Canada and the United Kingdom. Email us at sales@cmccaribbean.com. CaribVision, the eyes and ears of the Caribbean.
To thrive in today's dynamic business environment, you need the right partner. Digicel Business is that partner, offering you the flexibility you need to flourish. Our scalable solutions will increase your effectiveness and efficiency while enabling workforce mobility. Large or small, you can't hide from potential threats to your business. With a partner protecting your interests, you can focus on productivity. It's amazing where the right partnership can develop and how far it can take you. Contact us today. Digicel Business, complete solutions for your needs.
Welcome back to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. This evening, as I said earlier, we're going to be looking at the airline industry and exactly how it's being viewed, how it's helping us or hindering us in terms of our development here in the region. With me is Mr. Gregor Nassief. He is a hotelier from Dominica, and I need to say he has become popular from his open letter to LIAT. Good evening, Gregor, and welcome.
Hi, Jerry. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
All the way from Canada, we have online Mr. Jim Lynch. Jim, good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, sir. My pleasure.
Tell us who you are.
Okay, I am born in Barbados. I have Antiguan citizenship from being there for 16 years with LIAT. I started in air traffic control in Barbados, and I was a charter pilot, then an airline pilot. I spent 16 years with LIAT, and in '96 I had a bad cataract operation. I came to Canada, and I medically retired from flying. I've been in Canada since then, retired in December, and trying to make a difference in regional aviation. I should really say sub-regional aviation in the Eastern Caribbean with LIAT. But I'm banging my head against the door and the door ain't opening.
All right, we'll come to that. But let's first of all talk about what has been the airline experience in the Caribbean. What would you say from a person who has come in from the angle of even an air traffic controller to the positions that you have held? What would you say, if you were to say in a few words, has been the experience of the airline industry here?
Airline industry is fragmented, and it's fragmented mainly because we are a regional airline where virtually every flight is an international flight. The only domestic flights are St. Kitts to Nevis and Antigua to Barbuda. Everything else is international. So it doesn't really compare with the standard regional airline in the US or Europe or Canada or anywhere else. You have different nationalities. I mean, there's got to be, what, 10, 12 different nationalities in LIAT's network. Trinidad is part of the regional political grouping, but they seem to be trying to grab everything for themselves, so that doesn't help. There are a bunch of smaller airlines that in this region don't have the money really to go anywhere, but they can be part of the solution, but nobody really cares.
When you say nobody really cares, what does that really mean?
The smaller airlines can be used to be part of LIAT's solution. Remember when I first went to LIAT in 1980, there was the parent company, and then there were two subsidiaries, 4 Island Air and Inter Island Air, and they used to carry the small loads. Right now you've got Dash 8s, the smallest one I think is 37 seats. And if you're traveling a route that only has 5 or 10 passengers all the time, you're going to lose money. There's no question about it.
And you think that the smaller, oftentimes when you hear about the airlines in the region, you hardly ever hear about the smaller airlines. But I dare say, for example, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Mustique as a destination that is so prominent and famous would not exist without the small airlines. So why haven't we interwoven them into this whole regional air transport business?
Well, that's not strictly true because its proximity to St. Vincent is such that you can probably get a schooner to go across or some kind of speedboat to go across.
The waters are not necessarily nice.
No, but when I was 13 years old, we went down, we spent time in Beckway on a holiday. And we went across on a schooner. It was about an hour on a schooner. There were no airports, so we went across on a schooner. We spent a very pleasant week.
I agree, but the international traveler today, the famous travelers today, don't want that. They want to fly between their destinations with the shortest possible time and with a great degree of convenience.
Yes, but there's not enough scheduled traffic into Mustique to make it worthwhile.
No,
So
I understand that. But the point I wanted to make originally when I started this is the importance of the small airlines, because what I'm saying is that an island like Mustique with its fame could not exist without the small airlines. That's the point I want to make.
I don't know. I think they could. People are really looking for exclusivity. They're trying to get away from the crowd. They're trying to have privacy. And how much more privacy can you have than to go on an island where nobody can get to it?
Absolutely.
Smaller airlines are all basically charter companies that are doing a little bit of schedule. They call it scheduled, non-scheduled, or non-scheduled, scheduled flights. And they make extra money doing that, but they are basically charter companies.
Right. But do you think they have a role in the whole fix of the air transport industry of the region?
Well, the fact that they're making money means that they're relevant, that they have a place.
But
Like
what we have
Gravel's SVG Air, it started as a very small airline. He started with one airplane. Now he's got, 3, 4, 5 Twin Otters. He's got endless Islanders. He's still got the airplane that he started with. He's growing and he's making money because he's finding the niches where money can be made. And part of that is serving what we used to serve on Islanders for LIAT, is going across to Barbados, is taking passengers to Nevis, and doing it on a scheduled basis under the LIAT banner.
Do you think that LIAT made a mistake by dropping the Islanders then?
Yes, definitely, because the Islander is a very basic airplane. The Islander is where the young pilots used to start, because it's a single pilot airplane. You get your commercial license. You understand how to fly, but as my instructor told me when I finished my commercial license, you now have a license to learn how to fly. So having the first pilot's license is not, you don't just throw you out and put you on a Boeing 747. It is a license to learn how to fly. So you go out and you look for a job where preferably 2 engines over the water in the Caribbean. 1 engine is fine in North America. But the Islander is the starting airplane for a commercial pilot to go on and build his hours and rise to higher airplanes. So the Islanders were serving a purpose, except in LIAT, when we got the Twin Otters, we were running in a situation where the Twin Otter has 19 seats. But LIAT, for some strange reason, had to break even up at 21. So somehow they got the expense of running the airplane up so high that if we filled the airplane with passengers, we still didn't make a profit.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
That's not the fault. That's not the fault of the airplane. That's not the fault of the crew. That's the fault of the company.
Let me bring in Mr. Nassief here. Let's look at it from another perspective. You run a hotel. You depend on good air connections to get your hotel and keep your hotel running. What has been your experience? What drove you to write that letter last year?
Well, for me, it was less about the complications it posed for the business, and more about what I just saw as very, very poor treatment of LIAT customers.
So you think it's a customer service issue?
No, that's one factor, and that was why I decided to speak up, because I felt it had reached a point where LIAT's treatment of the customers was extremely bad, and it went on for 2 months, and there was no apology, no explanation, no plan. No executive had accepted any accountability or responsibility, and that's just absolutely unacceptable. And it was very scary for me as someone who also depends on LIAT, as I think that Dominica, almost 80% of our air access is on LIAT. So it just brought me to a point where I wanted to speak up.
You're frustrated.
Effectively. I was extremely frustrated, and I felt very bad for the persons who were experiencing this. And the problem needed someone to stand up and say, this is the problem, these are the steps we're taking, we're going to fix it. And it took about 3 months into the crisis before that actually occurred, which I thought was completely unacceptable.
But let's talk about its role in terms of your business.
Yes, it's absolutely vital, obviously.
No,
for Dominica, for tourism, for inter-island travel, LIAT is an integral part of.
And let me bring Jimmy. Let me bring you back in on this question. We've been striving so far in the region to have one airline. If the airline industry is so important to the region, is depending on one airline really the right way to go?
No. I've been doing some research, and I discovered that in 1991, CARICOM meeting of heads of governments were talking about looking at the LIAT problem again. We're in 2014 now. They're still talking about it. They will never stop talking about it. And I believe this is why Patrick Manning threw BWIA out of the door and started Caribbean Airlines, and unilaterally declared that he was going to take over LIAT, he was going to take over Bahamas Air, and he was going to take over Air Jamaica, and he was going to create the regional airline. But to this day, Caribbean Airlines is still the national airline of Trinidad and Tobago, and that fact will never change. If there is one regional airline, you have basically a monopoly.
Right.
And does anybody want to fly through the Caribbean under a monopoly which behaves even worse than they are now? Because Caribbean Airlines is no better than LIAT when it comes to service.
So is this an endemic problem that we have in the region, that we just either don't understand service or we don't care about service? What is really the problem?
I can't speak to Caribbean Airlines. I can speak to LIAT, and to my...
No, I'm talking about generally in the region. Is customer service, you think, a problem of the region as a whole?
It is customer service, but customer service comes back to training. If you don't train your people to deal with people properly, then they're not going to deal with people properly. I still want to address LIAT, and in that, LIAT customer service people are abused daily, on and on and on. Somebody has been with LIAT for 10 or 12 years, you can see it. The way they walk around the airport, they are just broken people. This is a company where people behind the counter are grabbed, they're around the throat, they're hit with fists, they're just things are thrown at them. This is, I guess, partly because of the, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
Partly because of the background problems with management and how the airline is run. But I really feel for the customer service reps. I still feel that training is necessary, and I don't believe that management is behind the employees. I really do not.
Why would you make such a statement? Why would you make such a statement, Jim?
Management style, for the time I was working with LIAT for the 16 years and ever since, the style of management is confrontational. They have a constant running war with the employees. Everybody tiptoes around it. They're politically correct. Nobody says anything. The fact is that management, it always has a war going on with the employees.
But that's strange, because in recent news, the management has been asking the employees to give up 2 weeks for them to save $14 million. I think if that's the figure I have, that figure might be a little bit high, but some significant amount of money. And you think, and the employees turn them down. You think that's the reason why?
Well, it signifies management abuse to me. If the management is so bad that they have to go to the employees and tell them they have to take a pay cut, then what's wrong with management? It's management who's brought it to that point, not the employees. And let me go a little further, because after the meltdown, there was a pilot sick-out. The pilot sick-out was caused for the second time, not even the first time, because the pilots had been negotiating with management for 10 years on the same contract. And this is not the first time, this is the second time. And the pilots got to a point where they just believed that they were staring at a brick wall and nothing was going to happen. The only way to get management attention is to hit them in the wallet. And the way you hit them in the wallet is you go on a sick-out, you shut the company down. I was at LIAT when we had the first sick-out, and we were there for 10 years negotiating. I made a calculation that would have cost the company some 30 million EC dollars to put 2 senior managers and 2 senior pilots at a negotiating table for 10 years. Because it's not just their salary, somebody has to do their job.
While they're out.
While they're out negotiating, somebody has to do their job, whether it's managing or flying the airplane.
Okay, how do you feel about the new thrust, the new idea, I would say, to make the air traffic business, the airline business, an essential service, thereby sidestepping that issue of withdrawal of service?
Mr. Gonzalez is an intelligent man. He should know better than say things like that. The fact is that any person with a brain can tell you that an essential service designation means absolutely nothing. Because as many people have done, you can go to your doctor and tell him you're not feeling well, you take a sick certificate, and you don't go to work. And if everybody does that and they get a sick certificate, wink, wink, nod, nod to the doctor, then the company can do absolutely nothing about it, whether you're an essential service or not.
You can get sick.
If you go on a sick out, you get a sick certificate from the doctor, you are sick. There's nothing anybody can do about it.
Mm. But what do you
so
think?
bring on the essential service. If I get a certificate from my doctor, I'm going home.
So you think it's definitely not the smart way to go?
No, the smart thing to do is fix management, fix the airline, fix the board. The problem is with LIAT management. The problem is not with the employees.
You mentioned the board. Let's deal with each of them separately. What is the problem with the board?
The problem with the board is political appointees. The board is stuffed with political appointees. Except for maybe one or two, they know nothing about aviation. The chairman claims he is an aviation expert. He's written books about aviation, but if you read the books, you see the books about tourism. The book is not about aviation. The man knows nothing about aviation, but he claims to be an aviation expert. He's the chairman of the board. In the last couple of years, he has resigned twice under pressure, and he's still there. What is he doing still there?
Okay, let me go to Gregor. Gregor, how do you see, in your letter, you also pinpointed the board and you called for the resignation of the board, of the chairman of the board. Do you agree with Jim?
What? Yes, I do to a point, but when you hold management accountable and you don't see the changes that are taking place there, then you hold the board accountable and you don't see the changes taking place from there either. You have to go to the next step. So I don't agree at this stage that the problem is the executive or the board. I think you have to go up to the next
what's the next
level. It's the shareholders committee chaired by Prime Minister Gonzalez. Now, I think the basic problem LIAT faces is that it is financially unsustainable. I think that at this point, LIAT is about to go off a financial cliff.
That's a very strong statement. We'll pause it right here and we'll go to our first break on this edition of Time to Face the Facts. Regional airlines, air industry, where are they taking us? We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Scotiabank can help you get your business growing. It all starts with a conversation. Talk to one of our business banking advisors today. Scotiabank. Discover what's possible.
It's the end of the month again. My son's rent is due.
Sending money to your children studying overseas is easy. Western Union's safe and reliable service lets you transfer money everywhere in the world.
My son is doing well at school. That makes me proud.
Western Union, moving money for better.
Agents in Grenada, Rennick Thompson and Company, with locations in Grenville, Sauterres, Guelph, Grand Anse, the Carnage, Bruce Street, and Carriacou.
To thrive in today's dynamic business environment, you need the right partner. Digicel Business is that partner, offering you the flexibility you need to flourish. Our scalable solutions will increase your effectiveness and efficiency while enabling workforce mobility. Large or small, you can't hide from potential threats to your business. With a partner protecting your interests, you can focus on productivity. It's amazing where the right partnership can develop and how far it can take you. Contact us today. Digicel Business, complete solutions for your needs.
If you want the eyes and ears of your customers, then there's only one place. CaribVision, the authentic channel for all things Caribbean, bringing you Caribbean news, Caribbean sports, Caribbean entertainment, Caribbean travel, and festivals. Advertise on the CaribVision platform, reaching across the Caribbean in over 21 countries, and now in the U.S. market on Cablevision in the New York tri-state area, and coming soon to Canada and the United Kingdom. Email us at sales@cmccaribbean.com. CaribVision, the eyes and ears of the Caribbean.
Advantage inspires you to believe that the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Business Advantage with host Jerry George, mentoring the next generation of Caribbean entrepreneurs. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays on www.niceradio.ca. caribbeaninformationhub.info. For further information, email caribbeaninformationhub@gmail.com. Like the Business Advantage Facebook page or call 1-784-456-5967 to participate.
Welcome back. The regional airline industry, where are we going, is the question that we are trying to ask. With us from Canada is Mr. James Lynch, and with us in studio, Mr. Gregor Nassief. So you're making the point, you made a very strong statement when we went out, that LIAT is approaching a fiscal financial cliff. Do you back that up?
Yes, I think so. I mean, LIAT's losses over the last 4 years have exceeded about 120 million EC dollars. Last month, LIAT had to basically juggle between paying staff and paying its lease on some of the new aircraft. In 2015, they have to start paying the principal on the US $60 million loan from CDB. So that's going to be a third major payment to make each month. The business plan is based on a load factor of 75%. The average load factor has been something like 54%. LIAT is simply financially unsustainable, and that is the core of the problem, and that has to be fixed.
But what I understand is that the government who promised to put money in, and I think it was some $65 billion they're supposed to put in, they've only put in just about half of that.
They've put in about 50% of it, yes.
So if the governments, well, let's face it, all of the governments of the region are in financial difficulty. Just about every country has a fiscal deficit that is facing it. Mm-hmm. The other countries have not joined on board. Is there because there's a lack of confidence of the business plan that LIAT presently has?
I'm really not sure. I think that the major funding was supposed to come from the 4 major shareholders, and fiscally they're not. It's very, very difficult for them to find the funds to put in. I assume they will. I don't know how. But that's not the point, because even when they put in those funds, it's not going to help. It's just more funds into a black hole, because LIAT's structure financially, it's not sustainable. And in my opinion, the core problem is that the PM that leads the shareholder team does not believe that the airline is actually viable. He has said that various times. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, if LIAT needs to embark on a journey of financial sustainability, and the leader himself of the shareholders team does not believe that the airline is financially viable, then that journey can never begin. So the changes have to become there. The changes have to start from there.
He doesn't believe it's viable? Why?
Because he has said that LIAT cannot make a profit. In other words, it's okay for it to continue losing money because that's what is expected. It's not a viable airline.
He said it should at least break even.
He said hopefully, or at least. Mm-hmm. But yet what we see is that every couple of years, LIAT is faced with serious financial issues, and the shareholders, who are actually the people of the region, are asked to save the airline again based on a new plan again. And this is not going to change unless someone on the shareholders committee says the priority has to be to make this business financially sustainable. So we have to reinvent, restructure, and run LIAT like a business. Now, I understand that it's not an ordinary business, that it serves a very critical purpose to the region. But LIAT cannot continue to run with 850 to 900 employees. It cannot continue to serve 20 2 destinations. It cannot continue to have a very expensive fleet of 12 aircraft. It cannot continue to be all things to all people. LIAT has to focus on its core competencies, on its core route. It has to contract, not expand. And when it contracts, the smaller air services you're talking about then fill an essential gap. And then we can have a more open aviation environment. But as long as the governments continue to subsidize an unsustainable airline from a financial perspective, no one can compete effectively because they're competing against government subsidies. So LIAT has to find its place, it has to find its sweet spot, it has to find the routes where it can be successful. It has to shed the other routes. It has to shed staff. It's operating from 2 or 3 hubs. It cannot do that. And once LIAT deals with these issues, it will find its place, it will be financially sustainable, and you will find other airlines filling the necessary gaps, and our aviation industry will become what it needs to be. But the chairman of the shareholders committee has to either let another prime minister take the lead and issue the mandate that the priorities to make this thing financially sustainable, or he himself has to change the vision and expectation he has of the airline.
But you think it's right that the vision and expectation be left to one person for such a serious operation?
No, but you always have a chairman, you always have a lead, and if that lead himself does not believe that the airline can be profitable, then it will continue not being profitable. If the leader doesn't believe in the journey will never begin.
Agreed.
And that is what has to happen. That is what will change LIAT's fate and the fate of aviation in the region.
Let me say for total disclosure, folks, we invited LIAT to this discussion, and they refused to come to discussion. This is the second time we're having a discussion on air transport. We have every turn have sought to invite them so that we can get their position on the table, and they refused to come to the discussion. So I want that to be understood out there. Jim?
Yes, sir.
Now, you heard Gregor's position.
I just want to stick a financial pin there.
Right.
And that is the lack of accounts. There are no publicly available accounts for LIAT. So on the internet, all I could find was 2 numbers, and that is what Barbados put in to LIAT in 2011 and 2012. I have the percentage shareholdings, and I use the difference, the spread between 2011 and 2012 to create a spreadsheet. And what my spreadsheet tells me is that in the next 7 years, including 2014, LIAT will cost the shareholders over $1 billion US, not EC or Barbados dollars, $1 billion US.
Over the next
and that is just to keep it going over the next 7 years. That has nothing to do with innovation, the refleeting, but nothing. That is just what they put in to keep LIAT going. So we're not talking about a few $1,000 or a few $1 million. We're talking about real money here. And let's face it, the IMF is on the ground in Barbados. They just laid off 3,000 civil servants, and more are going to go. Antigua, I know for a fact, has a problem paying pensioners. Okay? These are serious problems in the 2 biggest shareholders that own over 80% of the airline. Serious financial problems, and we're looking at a cost of over $1 billion US over the next 7 years. LIAT, let me say for the first time, my professional opinion is that LIAT is going to fold within 5 years if no changes are made. And let us face another fact. The Honorable Frondel Stewart, who represents the 50% that Barbados owns, refuses to make decisions about LIAT. He refuses to answer emails, and Gregor will know that. I know that. Other people know that. He does not communicate. He does not even acknowledge emails. So we have an owner who doesn't communicate. We have an owner who is bankrupt, basically. And we have a huge bill coming up down the road. What is going to happen? And there's only one answer to that, and that is LIAT is going to fold because nobody can afford it anymore. Nobody's making the right changes. Okay, change the board. Stuff it back with political appointees again, and you're still in the same place. You haven't changed anything. All you've done is change the phases, but the boat is still going over the waterfall. LIAT requires, absolutely requires, major changes. Not just major changes, but changes that people, passengers, can see and feel. Otherwise, it is the passengers who are going to leave LIAT and not come back. The passengers, as Gregor will already tell you, the passengers are already begging. That is not the government's begging. The passengers are begging other carriers to come and provide alternatives. So, and the airlines that they are asking to come and provide alternatives are gearing up to do exactly that. Within 5 years, because the passengers are going elsewhere, LIAT will become irrelevant. 2 years ago, LIAT carried over 1 million passengers. Last year, they carried 850,000. What will they carry this year? We get to a point where they have a brand new fleet and nobody to carry.
But the fleet that
this is becoming a regional joke.
The new fleet can carry, the aircraft can carry more people. So we were told...
I don't care how many people they can carry. If there are no passengers, they have no passengers to carry.
But we were told that getting this new fleet would fix LIAT. That's what we were told.
LIAT's problem is not fleet. LIAT's problem is management. LIAT's problem is board. LIAT's problem is ownership. LIAT's problem is not the employees. It's everybody from the employees on up. We have a director of flight operations who, this is why the sick-out happened after the meltdown. They have director of flight operations called in a pilot who refused to take the airplane because it had not been properly checked. He suspended the pilot. The chairman of the association went in to argue for him, and he suspended the chairman too. The pilots went out. Ms. Reefer Jones came in and sorted it out, reinstated the pilots, and nothing has happened to the director of flight operations. But effectively, the director of flight operations closed the airline for 2 days, and nobody has said boo about it.
But they got a penalty for that, didn't they?
What kind of management is this?
What I'm saying, did they suffer a penalty for that infraction?
There is no penalty.
No, it didn't.
So basically, that tells me as a consumer that management can do anything they damn well feel like, and nothing is going to happen to them.
No, I think the regional aviation authorities came out against them on that issue, and they have a penalty. I think I heard a figure of something like $150,000. I'm not sure of that. Gregor?
But the DFO is not going to pay that. The airline is going to pay that for him.
Oh, I see. Well, that's true too.
So effectively, there is no penalty.
But let's talk about the fact that other airlines want to come in. But under the regulations that are there at the moment, do you think it makes any sense for any new airline to come in when you still are going to be hampered by the regulations that exist at the moment?
Things are getting easier, and I can tell you right now, other airlines are starting up to fill the void. Before LIAT has even closed, there are other airlines starting up to fill the void, brand new airlines.
But we have been told this on more than one occasion that the day, if LIAT closes its doors, we all are stranded on our various islands. Is that true?
It's going to be true for maybe months, because nobody can provide the service that quickly. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, without a LIAT, there's nothing going to have that continuity up and down the islands from top to bottom. Mm-hmm. So you can get a flight from St. Martin to Dominica, and then you need to change in airplanes and find another carrier to take you from Dominica down to St. Lucia. And when you get to St. Lucia, you've got to find some other carrier now to take you down to Grenada.
But that is the reason.
What I'm saying.
But isn't that the reason why? Isn't that the reason why LIAT should be supported? Because of that fact you just raised.
LIAT should be supported, but not in this present form. LIAT, as I said before, needs major changes from employee, not the employees, but from above the employees all the way up to the board, and including the board. Look at standard business practices. It's a standard business practice for a board to be appointed to provide the future of the airline, to go out and seek business, to go out and make arrangements and the goodwill of other businesses. And it is the board which provides the future of the company.
But Gregor
It
said
is the management. It is management's duty to do what the board tells them to do to carry on the day-to-day operations of the company. That is standard business practice.
Yes.
Right now in LIAT, the board is doing nothing. The CEO is the one who makes the future of the airline, as we saw with Captain Brunton, and who carries out the day-to-day operations as well. We have a CEO who is board, chairman, CEO, and everything all rolled into one. That is not the way LIAT is supposed to operate because of the abuses.
Question. Gregor said that he thinks you should go higher because the board is actually employed by the shareholders. How could we change the board? Gregor? Let me bring Gregor here. What's your formula?
No, as I say, the team of shareholders needs to appoint a new board. But again, the vision has to be to run LIAT like a business. So they have to appoint a board, a chairman and a board that is going to follow the mandate to run the organization in a financially sustainable way. If that is the vision and the mandate, then that determines who you put on your board. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have a board of persons who, with a strong mix of aviation and business experience, obviously, and that board will find a CEO and an executive team to run the airline. But it all begins with the vision. You know, what do we expect of the airline? If we expect the airline to continue to lose money, and if that's okay, then it will never change. If we expect the airline to turn the financial corner, to be financially sustainable, to improve service, to be viable over the long term, it requires radical change.
Politicians are politicians. Politicians will always see things from a political angle. So could we really expect change? Question number one. Question number two, should LIAT therefore be privatized?
Should we expect change? Yes. Because
politicians?
Because the real shareholders are suffering, because the Treasury can no longer afford to continue to bail out the airline financially. That has to stop.
But do you think the man on the street, the average taxpayer, understands that and understands the power they have to make the change?
I think more and more they do, and I think that the PMs, the prime ministers, are aware the times have changed, that they don't have the funds to continue to bail out this airline, and it is reaching a point where they will be forced to change. Unfortunately, we only change when we have to. Even though we know that we need to, and we think in 6 months things will go wrong, or in a year, for some reason, we wait until the point of actually falling over the cliff, and then we're forced to change, and we change. I would appeal to the shareholders not to wait until that point. I would appeal to the shareholders to see very clearly that LIAT is not financially sustainable in its current form, in its current size, in its current structure. And I would appeal to them to begin now. I think that LIAT could be significantly fixed in 90 to 120 days.
Are you serious about that?
Yes.
With
the right board and the right CEO, it's a very straightforward process. The airline has to contract.
You're thinking like a businessman.
But that's what LIAT needs. LIAT needs a board that will run the airline like a business, because it is a business. Now, I'm not saying that you have to slash and cut and you have to change the idea that this is an airline to serve the region. You don't. You can balance both things. You can't go to one extreme and you can't go to the other extreme either. But it clearly requires a restructuring, and it's not rocket science. It's a few key things you have to do. LIAT needs to be smaller, it needs to be simpler, it needs to service fewer destinations, it needs to employ less people, it needs to operate from fewer hubs, and it probably needs less than 12 aircraft.
Right there, right? You have a problem. And perhaps Jim will also comment on this. Let's take a break at this point in time, though. I'm going to come back with a question about Antigua's role. This is time to face the facts. regional airline industry, where's it taking us? We'll be right back in just a moment.
To thrive in today's dynamic business environment, you need the right partner. Digicel Business is that partner, offering you the flexibility you need to flourish. Our scalable solutions will increase your effectiveness and efficiency while enabling workforce mobility. Large or small, you can hide from potential threats to your business. With a partner protecting your interests, you can focus on productivity. It's amazing where the right partnership can develop and how far it can take you. Contact us today. Digicel Business, complete solutions for your needs.
Scotiabank can help you get your business growing. It all starts with a conversation. Talk to one of our business banking advisors today. Scotiabank. Discover what's possible.
Advantage inspires you to believe that the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Business Advantage with host Jerry George, mentoring the next generation of Caribbean entrepreneurs. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays on www.niceradio.info. For further information, email caribbeaninformationhub@gmail.com. Like the Business Advantage Facebook page or call 1-784-456-5967 to participate.
If you want the eyes and ears of your customers, then there's only one place. CaribVision, the authentic channel for all things Caribbean, bringing you Caribbean news, Caribbean sports, Caribbean entertainment, Caribbean travel, and festivals. Advertise on the CaribVision platform, reaching across the Caribbean in over 21 countries, and now in the U.S. market on Cablevision in the New York tri-state area, and coming soon to Canada and the United Kingdom. Email us at sales@cmccaribbean.com. CaribVision, the eyes and ears of the Caribbean.
It's the end of the month again. My son's rent is due.
Sending money to your children studying overseas is easy. Western Union's safe and reliable service lets you transfer money everywhere in the world.
My son is doing well at school. That makes me proud.
Western Union, moving money for better.
Agents in Grenada, Rennick Thompson and Company, with locations in Grenville, Sauterres, Guave, Grand Anse, the Carnage, Bruce Street, and Carriacou.
Welcome back to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. Taking another look at our airline industry and also where we have to go with this industry if we are going to salvage anything and develop this region. Joining us is Mr. James Lynch, and he's out of Canada via Google Hangout. And with me in studio is Mr. Gregor Nassief. The two questions that I asked, would it change? 1 and 2, should we privatize LIAT? I wanted to bring in another question, though, and perhaps Jim, having some Antiguan roots, might want to answer this. Antigua, Jim, is adamant that nothing should change when it comes to LIAT and the number of employees. In fact, the opposition has sent the signal that if anything changes, they would pull out of the OECS. What's your thoughts on that?
LIAT does not need to be privatized. On the 15th of December, I sent a joint venture proposal to Prime Minister Gonzalez. To this date, I've had no reply. A week later, I sent the same proposal to all of the prime ministers. Since then, I spoke to Prime Minister Baldwin Spencer, and he thought it had merit, and he said he would make sure that it got a hearing. I also spoke to Prime Minister Skerritt of Dominica. He told me, in his words, he is 100% behind it. My proposal to the Prime Ministers was that I would not change any of the destinations. I would set forth a number of things in negotiations that I accept as engraved in concrete. That's fine. That would become my problem. I offered to inject $200 million into LIAT, but I had to have control of the board and of management, and I could turn LIAT around. Now, I don't know where they went to school or who their parents were, but all the other prime ministers seem to have grown up without manners. I grew up believing or being told that when somebody gives you a call, you respond. Somebody sends you an email, you at least acknowledge it. I've had no reply from any of them. Subsequently, I figured, well, they're not interested in the joint venture. So I sent an email to all of them. I said, well, make me chairman. I will turn the airline around if you make me chairman. I'd get no response. This is my third attempt to make some kind of dent on the prime ministers to make them understand that LIAT is on the way down the waterfall, on the way down the hill, or the cliff, whatever you want to show it as. But LIAT is going to fail, and it's going to fail within 5 years. That has to be very clear to the prime ministers and to the people of the region.
In some people's mind, that's a long time.
The people of the region who own the airline is the people of the region who will suffer if LIAT closes.
But that 5 years to many people sound like a long time. In fact, that's a whole political term. So if that is the case, there's no urgency in it because the next election is probably around the corner by that time. So is it really, Gregor thinks it's a shorter period. Am I right, Gregor?
Yes. Yeah, I think that that it will reach a breaking point financially much sooner than that.
What's your prediction?
I think it could be by as early as next year.
It's next year.
Yeah, because the cost, the problem is that they did a refleeting exercise, which was very expensive, and it's all based on a business plan, which is way off track. So they have significantly increased their cost base. They have new loans to pay. Yeah, they have the lease payment. I understand on an ATR is about $120,000 US a month or more, versus the previous plane, the Dash 8, which was about half of that. So
really,
yes, that's what I understand. It was about $70,000 US a month.
But does that make sense? Because we were told. Okay, first question is, you talked about the business plan. What really drives the business plan?
It's a fantasy. It's a
fantasy.
It's a wonderful plan, but it is based on LIAT expanding its way out of losses, expanding its way to financial sustainability, introducing new routes to Jamaica, to Aruba, to Haiti. It is not going to happen. It's based on a load factor of 75%. The average load factor is now 54%. So unfortunately, it's a fantasy. It looks fantastic, but it's not going to happen. So you've significantly increased your cost base. You've significantly increased your need for financing to be sustainable. And the revenue projections, the load factor, is not going to happen. So the financial cliff, I think, is much closer than 5 years. I think it's probably a year away.
Let's go to the question of taxes. It's agreed by some documentation that I've seen, even by people in LIAT, that the government taxes is part of the problem. That's why people are not boarding the planes more regularly. But the governments have done nothing. In fact, every time you hear about the LIAT position, you never hear the government speak about the taxes position. What's your viewpoint? And after you've given yours, I'll invite Jim to share his thoughts on that.
No, I understand that taxes represent about 30 to 50% of airfare, which for me is absolutely absurd. It does not make sense. So yes, the governments have a role to play in bringing down airfares. And the airfares, I think what is actually charged now, although for us it seems high, when you do the analysis of what other airlines charge, what really makes it high are the taxes. Yeah.
Jim?
We had an example up here about 1999 of the big baseball stadium. They were losing all of their, but not losing all of their, they were losing the numbers of people that were coming to watch baseball games. So management decided the only thing they could do really was the admission fee. And when they raised the admission fee, even less people came. And so around in a cycle until They sold it, or they sold the naming rights to Rogers. It's no longer Sky Dome. It's called Rogers Stadium. That's backwards management. If you had any brain at all in a place where you could fill the place with kids and fathers and mothers and have a great time, if your numbers start dropping, you don't raise the access. You lower the access so that more people can afford to come. As I listened to your this same program from last year, and this point was brought up over and over again, but the taxes haven't gone down.
Nope.
If you lower the taxes and you make the travel accessible to more people will pay less taxes per flight, but you will make more money in the taxes. It's a simple mathematics.
Somebody put it this way. They said if the government really wanted to help LIAT, they'll flip it. They will actually give LIAT more of the fare, right, and less of the taxes, because often the government taxes compete with the fare. So really and truly, are they really wanting to help LIAT?
Well, I mean, that's part of the problem. If it's financially unsustainable right now, according to how it's run, the government has to continue to put money in. Right. So they want to take out as much money as they can. It doesn't make sense.
No. But let me go back to a question I asked earlier, Jim. I don't know if you missed it. The question of Antigua, basically saying they do not want anything to change with this structure of LIAT. Antigua has some of the highest employees in terms of numbers. And in fact, as I said, the opposition have signaled, and this is election season, that if LIAT's base is pulled out of Antigua, they will pull out of the OECS. Any sense in that?
I don't doubt it, but the fact is that LIAT doesn't need to leave Antigua. Things do not need to change with LIAT structurally. What LIAT needs is a different management. They come from a different direction. I said that management has an ongoing war with the employees. That is totally not necessary, and that war with the employees does not save money. It costs a lot of money, because if you fire an employee in Antigua, they turn around and take you to the labor commissioner, and then they take you to the courts. You have to pay lawyers. You have management off work going to attend the hearings, and it just costs more and more and more. And in the end, 50% of the people win their case, and you got to pay them anyway. So,
but if the numbers are unsustainable by the business plan, you cannot continue, can you?
But that is what none of the shareholders seem to want to realize or understand. But they're not letting us know that anyway, because if we get no feedback from them, we have to assume the worst.
Gregor?
No, I'd like to comment on the point of Antigua, yeah, and the threat that if the hub is changed or if you lay off people, they're going to pull out of OECS. I mean, that in essence is the problem, and that in essence is why the shareholder prime ministers need to establish that LIAT needs to be run like a business, free from the interference.
Too much political interference.
Free from that interference. And that the board and the executive must have the autonomy, largely, not entirely, but largely to run the business how it needs to be run. So as long as the politicians are making threats about what LIAT can do and should not do and what's going to happen if it's changed, there will not be any change. There will not be any improvement. So that's why it has to come from the top. It's not a management problem. It's not a board problem. It's a shareholder problem. The shareholders have to decide to run LIAT in a different way. And they have to allow it to be run like a business, and they have to allow the airline to be rationalized.
I feel there's a fear in Antigua that they will move the head office to Barbados.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's the fair. And let's face it, Barbados is the biggest shareholder.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Barbados is the biggest shareholder, but Barbados is the least competent to host LIAT. Barbados has Category 2, and my word from the inside is that the FAA, when they left, says don't call us again for another 10 years.
Really?
So Barbados is not going to get category one for a long time yet.
Okay.
Also,
Okay,
one
hold
of the
on.
reasons they can't get category one is because they have no oversight.
Jim?
The Director of Civil Aviation in Barbados is a shambles.
Jim, just hold on, right? We have a caller from St. Lucia, so let's take the caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, how are you doing this evening?
Very well, thank you.
This is Alan Chastany here from St. Lucia.
Alan Chastany, great to have you on.
Good,
Hi,
good,
Alan.
good. I have to say that, I very much support the position that Gregor has been articulating, and he's been articulating it extremely well, and I would say very dispassionately, which is, a very important thing to do. And, when LIAT was going through its crisis in the summer, I thought that it was very refreshing to see somebody take the position that he did, and he took the high road on it, and which was, very commendable, and I think it was very impactful. One aspect that we're missing here is that the management issue that is being put forward is absolutely correct, and this has been coming for a very long time. You cannot take permanent secretaries from governments and put them on a board when they're accountable to ministries and governments themselves, and expect that you're going to see any radical change in how LIAT is conducting itself. But the other aspect that we're missing here is the civil aviation authorities, which Mr. Lynch was just alluding to. I take the example of when we were bringing in CaribVision Airlines, which was a small airline that was trying to start first with islanders, and then to go to caravans, to basically operate out of Hewanora Airport, George Charles Airport, to Dominica, Martinique, St. Vincent, and Grenada. And CaribVision Airlines was a Surinamese airline with an air operating certificate from Suriname. We've all signed a CARICOM agreement, which we said we're going to recognize each other's AOCs. And this airline was told it was going to take 2 years to get an AOC from the OECS to fly islanders. LIAT comes in, brings in ATRs, and in no time, the whole thing is through. The civil aviation authorities are supporting and enabling LIAT to prevent competition. A very good friend of ours, and I know you know him, Mr. George, is Vincent Vanderpool Wallace.
Yeah.
And he said to me a very important statement. The Bahamas has a population of about 350,000 people. The OECS in Barbados has a population of 1 million people. The Bahamas has 25 scheduled carriers flying within the Bahamas. 8 charter companies and 5 cargo companies for 350,000 people. The OECS has 1 scheduled carrier, 2 charter companies, SVG Air and Mustique Air, and 2 helicopter companies. So what does that tell you? There's a restriction to trade. What Gregor was saying about LIAT preventing competition, I mean, we saw it firsthand in St. Lucia. When Air came in from St. Martin to St. Lucia with a non-stop flight, the next day LIAT had a non-stop flight on between St. Martin and St. Lucia. When Air drops the flight, a week later, LIAT drops the flight. When TIA, remember, was owned by Mr. Kaufman, was flying routes for LIAT, and then he decided to go and now open up a scheduled carrier. LIAT hired all his pilots within 2 weeks, and he was out of business. And we sit by idly and watch this thing take place. You know, there's no minnows here. The reason why we're in the predicament that we're in is because we've allowed no other airlines to develop here, that in case LIAT falls, there's somebody to take the place.
Well, let's talk about the legislation there for a bit. And I'm letting you have a free rein on this because I know you've been a good guest in studio on this subject yourself, having dealt with it very firmly in your position then as Minister of Tourism. But let's talk about the legislation, because clearly we have heard boasts that companies have come against LIAT and has failed and all of that. Is that really true? Has it been fair competition?
Well, Ivor put it there. How could it ever be fair competition when you have LIAT being subsidized? governments are very quick to say, well, look, all these private sector people came in, Caribbean Star, EC Express, BWE Express, and they've all gone. But yeah, because they all are sensible people. At some point, you determine whether you're going to continue losing money or not. Now, when you had an airline like LIAT, that when it had all that competition, never reduced the fleet, never reduced its routes, and it just kept on flying. And as a result of it, it didn't do the business sensible thing. And so where was it getting the money from? It wasn't paying the landing fees. It was collecting departure taxes and not paying it to the governments. And therefore, it's unfair competition. And as a private sector person, with EC Express, I think we lost something like $8 million within the first 4 months. And we kept on saying, okay, there's 6 flights leaving between St. Lucia to Barbados in the morning. Is that going to change? We didn't think that Stanford was going to blink. Clearly, LIAT wasn't going to blink. BWE Express wasn't going to blink. So guess what? You might as well leave the market because it makes no sense. When we were coming into the market, the planes that we wanted were what were called short 360s, which are non-pressurized planes that hold 36 passengers, which would have been ideal for flying between St. Lucia and Barbados. Couldn't do it because we couldn't get the licenses from ECA. So we end up having to go with Dash 8. So if your competition is forced to copy and mimic the style of LIAT, how are you ever going to compete against that?
So is ECA part of the problem, you think? You think there's too much political influence on ECA? Is that what you're telling us?
It's not just political influence. The majority of people who work at ECA come from LIAT.
Oh?
Go and check it out. All the ex-pilots, where do you think they're going? So all I'm saying to you is, when I went up there and we were dealing with the situation with CARICOM Airlines, it was the most maddening situation I've ever had to face. It made no sense. You talk about ECA. ECA in those days is a functional corporation agency. It is not the Civil Aviation Authority of the OECS. It is the individual aviation authorities of each country, and we share those services. And so when I write a letter to ECA as the Minister of Civil Aviation, that is a letter supposed to be St. Lucia. My correspondence was shared with everybody.
Really?
Absolutely.
So then you're not sure that the people in ECA made a decision based on your letter? They probably made a decision based on collective positions then? That's what you're saying?
Mr. Gonzalez, Ralph, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, made it very clear. And the fact is that they were seeing CARICOM Airlines as competition. Yeah. And all St. Lucia was saying is that the hub in Barbados is not functioning. How can you tell me a person gets off an international flight in Barbados? First of all, LIAT does not have interlining agreements with any of the international carriers. So you got to get off the plane, go through customs and immigration. The LIAT counter is the furthest counter at the terminal. You have to walk all the way down to the end. LIAT has a different baggage allowance than the international airlines. So more often than not, you have to pay $60 for a second bag. There's only one credit card machine at the counter. So you have to now get into a separate line to go and pay your excess baggage. Then now you have to walk all the way back to the terminal to go through your passport check-in and security. To get into the main terminal to do what now? To walk all the way now to the small satellite terminal that they have at the end. How are you telling me as a St. Lucian government I can go out and promote using Barbados as a hub when I know that that's the kind of service my passengers have to go through?
Mr. Mshasne, we're going to take a break. If you wish, you can stay on the line because I believe you still have more to offer. Would you do that?
Sure.
Okay, so let's take a break at this point in time on this edition of Time to Face the Facts.
To thrive in today's dynamic business environment, you need the right partner. Digicel Business is that partner, offering you the flexibility you need to flourish. Our scalable solutions will increase your effectiveness and efficiency while enabling workforce mobility. Large or small, you can't hide from potential threats to your business. With a partner protecting your interests, you can focus on productivity. It's amazing where the right partnership can develop and how far it can take you. Contact us today. Digicel Business, complete solutions for your needs.
Scotiabank can help you get your business growing. It all starts with a conversation. Talk to one of our business banking advisors today. Scotiabank. Discover what's possible.
Advantage inspires you to believe that the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Business Advantage with host Jerry George, mentoring the next generation of Caribbean entrepreneurs. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays on www.niceradio.info. For further information, email caribbeaninformationhub@gmail.com. Like the Business Advantage Facebook page or call 1-784-456-5967 to participate.
If you want the eyes and ears of your customers, then there's only one place. CaribVision, the authentic channel for all things Caribbean, bringing you Caribbean news, Caribbean sports, Caribbean entertainment, Caribbean travel, and festivals. Advertise on the CaribVision platform, reaching across the Caribbean in over 21 countries, and now in the U.S. market on Cablevision in the New York tri-state area, and coming soon to Canada and the United Kingdom. Email us at sales@cmccaribbean.com. CaribVision, the eyes and ears of the Caribbean.
It's the end of the month again. My son's rent is due.
Sending money to your children studying overseas is easy. Western Union's safe and reliable service lets you transfer money everywhere in the world.
My son is doing well at school. That makes me proud.
Western Union, moving money for better.
Agents in Grenada, Rennick Thompson and Company, with locations in Grenville, Sauterres, Guave, Grand Anse, the Carnage, Bruce Street, and Carriacou.
Welcome back to this discussion on regional air transport. Where is it taking us? In studio with me is Mr. Gregor Nassief. On the Google Hangout from Canada is Mr. James Lynch. And on the telephone line from St. Lucia is former Aviation Minister Mr. Alan Chastney. Let me invite in Jim to comment a little bit on what Mr. Chastney has said, if you don't mind.
I don't know what to say. I know that I know several of the LIAT pilots do work in the ECCA, but I don't understand what that has to do with the competence of the people in there. Surely,
is it a question of competence? I don't think Mr. Chastney is speaking to competence.
A lot of the people working in a civil aviation authority are flight inspectors. They inspect airplanes for operations. They actually do check flights on pilots. You can't just pull somebody off the street.
No, I don't think, I'll let him answer for himself, but I don't think it's a question of competence. Maybe it's a matter of influence. Mr. Chastney, are you there?
Absolutely. I mean, the issue is that why is it that we have no competition? Why is it that an airline that was going to fly Islanders, which is a plane that's been commonly used in this area, that already had an AOC from a CARICOM country, would take 2 years to get an AOC? Why is it we've seen no new airlines coming up? I mean, clearly there's a demand. Mr. Lynch himself admits that. There are people who are flying less and less. And clearly, if you give people an alternative right now, they're going to go there. Why is it that the market hasn't adapted to the situation and we've not seen new entrants to the market? There's something that is preventing people from coming in. And until you address that problem, you're not going to find a bigger solution. It is enabling LIAT to remain in a monopoly situation. I mean, to give you an example, you have Caribbean Airlines. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent said that we should not allow Caribbean Airlines in because the government of Trinidad was subsidizing Caribbean Airlines. Mm-hmm. Well, when you have an airline that's continued losing money, and he admitted on a show, the Prime Minister admitted on a show that LIAT would never make money. So you're going to subsidize it. So what's the difference? Now, Caribbean Airlines has adjusted them, so they're no longer giving them a fuel subsidy. They will just put in monies every year as to cover the losses. I have to tell you, if I was a Minister of Civil Aviation right now in St. Lucia, I would make Caribbean Airlines my national carrier and not allow them to be prevented from coming in. So, for instance, Caribbean Airlines cannot fly Trinidad, Barbados, St. Lucia because they're not given permission.
But so let me ask a question in that regard. What is all this business about the treaties of Chaguaramas and open skies? Is this all a joke?
It is a joke, but the thing is that the Trinidadians themselves also have created a problem. You have the overflight fees, of which we all agreed to get Trinidad to collect for all of us.
Tell us what those are, so that our audience understands.
When planes fly through your airspace, that you can at a certain altitude, that you collect fees. So a huge amount of money that Cuba collects is the amount of overflight fees because of the location of Cuba. But we collect overflight fees, right? And Trinidad's been collecting them for years and has never shared them with everybody else. I mean, we've gone to look at the example of Central America.
Okay, Alan, hold on. I think Jim wants to say something on that issue, perhaps.
I ought to point out that most people do not know that Piarco provides the air traffic services for flights above 20,000 feet. So most airplanes flying over the Caribbean at altitude fly through Piarco's airspace and use Piarco's air traffic control.
I think that's what he's saying, but he's saying that they should have been collecting the overflight fees on behalf of the region. Is that what I understand, Alan?
Correct. And nobody to date has been able to give us actually how much money has been collected. But people know that's a tremendous amount of money. And I only say that because in Central America, as an example, they have a common civil aviation authority for Central America. And that agency collects all the fees and pays for all the navigation lights, pays for each of the members' participation in all the major aviation boards and committees around the world. We have one entity collecting all our money. So all I'm saying, gentlemen, is that there are a lot of things that are affecting aviation. And I mean, Gregor is 100% right, and I don't want to take any more of your time, but I want to say one last thing, because what is the solution? How do we solve this problem? Gregor is 100% right. In my mind, as long as they're going to keep ATRs, they're going to have to reduce the routes they're going to go to. There are certain routes in which you can fly an ATR as full as you want to. You cannot make money on that route. I mean, St. Lucia to Martinique, St. Lucia to St. Vincent, these short hops make no sense. To what Gregor is saying for me is that LIAT should be flying the core routes and allow either smaller airlines to develop in a non-combative environment with LIAT. So there's a support mechanism, and they're compelled to interline and code share with each other. Or LIAT now has to have two sets of fleets. One set of fleet which is going to fly core routes, and then a separate fleet which is going to fly the smaller routes. But I would say to you, I do not believe that LIAT is in a financial position. I agree with Gregor's assessment. I think it's coming much faster because when you look at each of the country's own fiscal positions as on national government basis, that we're all in crisis.
Yep.
And the idea that you think you're going to go down to Venezuela and join ALBA and get money from Venezuela, given what's taking place right now and what we're finding out more and more about what's taking place economically in Venezuela, is that really a viable option? CDB now has given two major loans to LIAT in the last 5 years. I mean, once in 2008, now another one here. And they've never hit and been able to hit any of the targets.
Let me ask a question. I'm going to be very mischievous on this one. Do you think that the CDB chairman, being a former LIAT CEO, is too sympathetic?
No, I think that CDB was stuck in a hard place because they clearly see LIAT as an essential service and one that's critical to the development of the region. And let's face it, he's not going to make that decision by himself. The Canadians, the Americans, the British, there's a whole bunch of people who sit on CDB and have to participate jointly. The issue that I have they really put up enough conditionalities to those loans? And I think that there are some types of loans in which they can put some very severe conditionalities to, and there are other types of loans that they don't have to. So, the governments are also very forceful in causing that loan to take place. But Gregor's 100% right. Again, the membership, the shareholders are coming to a crunch, and the colonialization of today is economics, and economics has no conscience. And, you know, the same way that Pan American and LIAT and Eastern Airlines and a lot of other airlines in the world have had to face that reality, it's staring LIAT in the face. And the very sad part is the staff who are working at LIAT, I mean, they have to be commended. I couldn't imagine having to come to work somewhere every day knowing what I was going to have to face. And I think particularly how they handled themselves during the crisis in the summer was, you know, very, very, very telling. But the management and the shareholders have a very different vision, and I do not believe it's a viable one.
Thank you very much for your participation. Okay, we're just going off the telephone lines there. We've had the former Minister of Aviation, Civil Aviation in St. Lucia, Mr. Alan Chasney, businessman himself. He agrees with you a lot, Gregor. Jim, you seem to have some different views.
All I wanted to say was that he asked me to comment on the political influence in the ECCA, and I tried to get a word edgewise that I wasn't qualified to comment, but he kept on talking. That's all I wanted to say, really.
Okay. But let's get back to the heart of the matter. The reality is that LIAT is facing, as Gregor put it, a fiscal cliff. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Why do we say that? We say that because even though they got the CDB loan, the portions that should have been put in by the participating government, the shareholder governments, they have only raised about half of that amount of money. There is no way it seems that the rest of that money is going to be raised anytime soon. So what's the way forward? Jim, you've said you made an offer to put in $200 million. How are you planning to use that money?
No, I'm not falling into that trap. like I told you before, anything we say here can and will be used against us.
Or for you.
The fact is that if we come up and we tell all the plans that we would do and all the things that we would do to save LIAT, somebody in government somewhere is listening and writing it all down, and then they put it in some bureaucrat's hands and he takes it off and he bungles it up, even worse than anybody else would. So I'm not prepared to put forward any of the things that I was going to do. Just suffice it to say that I had a bank in Europe that was willing to put up $200 million or as much money as I needed to get into the joint venture with LIAT, take it over, replace the board and upper management, and move onwards. My plan, as I said, I put things on the table in my proposal that I would not stop serving any of the destinations that LIAT is serving now. Using smaller airlines was part of my plan, but there's so much more to my proposal that is in a half-finished business plan. But again, I'm treading lightly because I know if it costs me $10,000 or $15,000 to produce a business plan, and as is happening now, about nobody even responds to me, then I'm $10,000 or $15,000 out in the hole. So I'm not playing that game. I know I can do it. I put a proposal. I have the money available, but nobody responding to me. So all I put in is my time, my effort.
Do you think that you are too audacious? You think in terms of Caribbean culture that you might have been seen a little bit too audacious in that proposal? Uninvited even?
You know something? They've had Irish people in there, they've had the British people in there, they've had this, they had that, they had the next. The only person they haven't given a chance is a local. Okay, I have broad experience, not just in flying and air traffic control, but in management, and I have broad knowledge in a number of other areas. I'm involved right now in a startup airline that I cannot talk about, but those experiences come into it as well. I have airline connections, I have aviation connections, I have a great imagination. I know I can provide innovation far ahead of what anybody might produce on a board who comes from any standard business. So I have the big picture in my mind. I know where I can go and what I can do. I know what is possible. And I know what is not possible. In fact, knowing what is not possible is probably a greater advantage.
Tell me.
So, you know.
It has been said, you're making the point as a person in the industry. We actually had, we tend to choose CEOs that were either pilots or so forth to bring them in as CEO. Does that really give them, let me compare it this way. It is often said in the Ministry of Health, the worst Minister of Health is a doctor. Is that true about the airline industry? The worst person's probably...
No, that's not true at all. There have been pilots who have been chairman and CEO of airlines and done very well. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at LIAT, you need somebody with broad knowledge, not just of aviation, but of the area, understanding of the politics, understanding of the people. As a pilot, I've flown up and down the islands. I've spent time in the islands. I'm a citizen of Antigua and Barbados. You know, I lived in Tortola for a year. I've been backwards and forwards. I've been in Canada for about 12, 15 years now. I have a broad background. How can you look at me and just push me aside?
Mm. I hear you.
You know, look at the present chairman of LIAT. He has a background in tourism. He has letters after his name that go through the door. But what is he doing? He's not doing anything. He's a tourism person. He's not doing anything with LIAT. He's not taking LIAT forward. That's for absolute sure. I don't know what he's doing. He's resigned twice in the last couple of years. Why is he still there?
Good question, but here's what. A former CEO made the point that he was hampered. He now lives in Europe. He was hampered in terms of doing his job because of the political interference. That you had shareholder governments dictating what they wanted, whether it makes sense or not. And the board and seemingly the management, obviously, carried out these even though they knew they did not make sense.
If you are intimidated by people above you, then you will do what you're told, even if it's impossible, right? If you know how to talk to people, if you're knowledgeable of the industry, if you come from a background where you can tell somebody in power, this is not possible, you're going to lose your shirt. Here's a different way to do it. Then maybe we can get through the business without losing money, do it a different way. But the people that are in power right now don't know any different ways. They're afraid of innovation, in fact. Why not do it this way? Why not do it that way? But in order to be able to say that, you must have the background knowledge.
Gregor, let me bring you in here. Clearly, two different viewpoints, and I love that, actually. Jim is more aggressive in terms of maintaining most of the status quo. He thinks that he can fix it that way. You think that it has to come down. Let's deal with your situation. LIAT has now gone out and purchased ATRs. Some of these are ATR 72s that carry 68 or whatever passengers. We hear that the passenger load is shrinking. So, make a point.
No, I mean, you asked how do we fix it, and I'm sorry to repeat this again, but
just let me say something. Remember our callers that folks can still call us. They put up the numbers in a while, but we'll take in your calls. Go right ahead and call us. Yeah.
Yeah. The change, as I've said, has to start with the shareholders. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to close on the point that Mr. Chastany was making, as long as LIAT is subsidized in the way that it is, as long as its inefficiency is allowed to exist, then the competition will be stifled, and then the Civil Aviation Authority will work to protect LIAT because it's being subsidized by the shareholder governments. Okay, so that whole framework, that whole structure has to change, and it needs the chairman of the shareholders team, who I do think it's time, and I'm sorry to say this, but I respect and admire the
Dr. Gonzalez, that is?
Yes, Dr. Gonzalez, very, very much. But he's been the chairman of the shareholders team now for I think over 8 years. he has a vision for the airline which allows it to continue to be financially unsustainable, because he's actually said it's not that it cannot be run like a
an ordinary business.
yes, like
to make a profit.
A business. And so I think it's time for the Barbados PM or for PM Skerritt to take the chairholder's seat.
But PM Skerritt only has a small amount of money in there.
Yeah, but his whole airlift is 80. It's significantly dependent on LIAT. So he has a huge amount at stake.
Hold your next point. We have
as does the Barbados PM.
Trinidad, we're going to take. Caller from Trinidad, thank you for calling.
Okay, hold on. Good night.
Please listen to your phone. I could hear you trying to listen to your television. Please listen to your phone.
Thank you very much for entertaining.
Please listen to your phone.
Yeah.
Turn down your TV, listen to your phone, otherwise we'll have to drop the call.
Yeah.
Last time, if you don't turn down the TV and listen to the phone, we'll have to drop the call.
Hold on a minute.
Thank you very much. You're looking at this week's edition of Time to Face the Facts, and we're looking at regional air transport. Where is it taking us?
Right.
Thank you.
Are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Right. Thank you very much. Your topic was very interesting. Only one problem, though. If you're having that problem with LIAT, all you have to ask Trinidad and Tobago to buy 51% of the shares, and that will solve your problem. Management, you will get everything. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, sir. Seemingly a very simple solution. But then CAL has its own problems, so is that really the solution?
No, I don't think so. I think
and it didn't work for Jamaica either.
I think if you merge two loss-making airlines, that's not going to suddenly make it
exchanging life jackets. I think that's
exactly a profitable airline.
Yeah.
There is another factor, and that is that if you do your research, you'll find out that Trinidad and Tobago has less than 15 years of oil and gas remaining. So if you want LIAT to last a long time, forget about Trinidad being a majority owner.
So who should be a majority owner?
I think, like I said, I listened to your program from last year, and I thought that what Ian Archer said was very good, that no single shareholder should have the majority. So Barbados and I think Trinidad had 18%. And what that did was it slowed down the amount of influence that any one shareholder could have on it.
But Barbados has the majority right now and seemingly no influence. From what I'm hearing,
Barbados had 49% a couple of years ago, and now it has over 50.
Right.
So somewhere along the line, it has either bought shares from somebody else, or somebody has dropped out and their share percentage went up.
But the point I'm making, even though that is true, it is clear that they do not exercise influence on the airline as being the major shareholder. From what I've been hearing here all this evening, everybody's blaming Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves.
Well, Gonsalves has his own problems in St. Vincent right now, and Prime Minister Stewart won't make any decisions. So between them, there isn't even a CEO. So the airline is rudderless right now. This has been 4 months now. There's no CEO. So why not just throw LIAT down the drain? I mean, it's at the tip of the precipice now. Let it go.
Okay, we have a call from St. Vincent. Let's take that call first.
Yes, I'm calling from St. Vincent, and the discussion is very erudite and very accurate in terms of the specific facts. However, everybody's tiptoeing around three very important facts. Number one, politics seems to have become institutionalized corruption. Number two, it's become a singular source of patrimony, employing friends and acquaintances. And three, it involves a lot of incompetent people. And until you solve these three large sociological problems, I think it would be very difficult for you to solve the details.
That's all?
That's my comment.
Thank you very much for your comment.
You're welcome.
Let me...
Back to replacing the board and the upper management.
Okay, hold, Jim. Jim, we have
problem solved.
Jim, we have to take a break. But before we take the break, I want to also make the point, for full disclosure, that we try to invite the government of Barbados, a representative, and again, we received no response from them. We tried to get everybody in on this who could help, and they actually said no. I'm being reminded. It's not that they didn't respond, they said no to us. But let's take a break on this edition of Time to Face the Facts. Don't go away.
It's been said that behind every door, possibility awaits. How much possibility depends on which door you open first. Every day, we help our customers discover the possibilities in their lives. It all starts with a conversation. Scotiabank. Discover what's possible.
Scotiabank can help you get your business growing. It all starts with a conversation. Talk to one of our business banking advisors today. Scotiabank. Discover what's possible.
It's the end of the month again. My son's rent is due.
Sending money to your children studying overseas is easy. Western Union's safe and reliable service lets you transfer money everywhere in the world.
My son is doing well at school. That makes me proud.
Western Union, moving money for better.
Agents in Grenada, Rennick Thompson and Company, with locations in Grenville, Sauterres, Guave, Grand Anse, the Carnage, Bruce Street, and Carriacou.
Advantage inspires you to believe that the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Business Advantage with host Jerry George, mentoring the next generation of Caribbean entrepreneurs. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays on www.niceradio.info. For further information, email caribbeaninformationhub@gmail.com. Like the Business Advantage Facebook page or call 1-784-456-5967 to participate.
If you want the eyes and ears of your customers, then there's only one place, CaribVision, the authentic channel for all things Caribbean, bringing you Caribbean news, Caribbean sports, Caribbean entertainment, Caribbean travel, and festivals. Advertise on the CaribVision platform, reaching across the Caribbean in over 21 countries, and now in the U.S. market on Cablevision in the New York tri-state area, and coming soon to Canada and the United Kingdom. Email us at sales@cmccaribbean.com. CaribVision, the eyes and ears of the Caribbean.
Welcome back as we continue to discuss regional air transport and where is it taking us. That's the question we're trying to answer. Gentlemen, both Jim, who is in Canada, and Gregor with us here. Remember, we're taking your calls, so please feel free to call us. Persons have been very complimentary about the customer service at LIAT, but there are others who think that there's much to be desired. In the midst of the meltdown in the summer, LIAT said that they were going to put in place some training for its customers. Not its customers, for its employees in terms of improving customer service. How much do you think the customer service is given a bad name to the airline?
Well, I think in the past, and specifically in the summer, it was a very, very, very critical time. Since then, however, I think there has been an improvement. I mean, I've flown LIAT maybe 10 or 12 times since then, actually, since the new...
The TRs?
No, the new interim CEO was appointed, and I actually saw some important improvements. I felt that the employees were more caring, more attentive. I found that they were clear in explaining when a problem is due to to LIAT's own operational reasons as opposed to weather, or some other factor. It impressed me also that the CEO, prior to the Christmas season, there was a lot of fear that we would have a winter freeze after the summer meltdown. And she came out and she said, prior to the winter season, that she assures the
passengers,
public, that operations will be smooth. So I think there has been a conscious, a very, very important effort to improve service.
Do you think that it's a gender bias thing, now that you probably have a woman at the wheel, there's some softer touch?
No, I mean, I think that we have a person there. I don't know a lot about her, but we have a person that cares, that wants to improve things. And what impressed me is that she took accountability before the season and says, I assure you things will be smooth. Right. I've never heard a LIAT CEO said that. That impressed me a lot, yeah?
I agree with you on that.
But no matter how we fix these issues, the service and so on, the core problem is that LIAT is financially unsustainable. And until the shareholders from the very top issue a new mandate to achieve sustainability financially and to put in a board and an executive team accountable for achieving that, until those basic steps are taken, there will be no change.
Let me go back to the last call we had from Trinidad and Tobago, in a sense of fairness, because I think it was towards the end of the man in government, when Trinidad was closing down the air bridge between Trinidad and Tobago, and they had some spare dash 8s. They offered them to support the region, because LIAT at that time also was struggling. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, we'll throw in our dash 8s to give some support to what is often called the Golden Triangle, which is the southern route. And that was completely rebuffed. Mm-hmm. Let me hear Jim on that. Jim, do you think that was a wise decision?
I don't know. Caribbean Airlines is seen as the enemy by LIAT now for obvious reasons.
Well, back then it wasn't even Caribbean Airlines. It was BB at the time. And we had a government who thought they could help in Trinidad.
Yep, and in the past, you give Trinidad an inch and they take a mile. In the past, Air Caribbean was a Trinidadian airline operating the air bridge, as was the Caribbean Express and Tobago Express. And next thing you know, they're operating to Grenada and Barbados and St. Vincent and St. Lucia, and they're all over the place. I don't know.
But what's wrong with that? Isn't that what we need? Isn't that fundamentally what we need? Because I think we're looking at the solution in the face, and we're saying it's not the solution. If we're saying Trinidad has resources that the other islands don't have, and they're willing to help us out with that, what's wrong with that?
I think it's a matter of territory. It's a matter of LIAT, with long experience of abuse from all over the place, sees a threat, and once they see the threat, they will say no.
But that doesn't help, because at the end of the day, we have further down the pike as far as I'm concerned with respect to this. So can't we back up? Isn't there a place now for us? Because I made the point that we cannot depend solely on a single airline in the region. It cannot happen. No business structure in the world today works that way. So can't we back up? Or is this another example of the failure of CARICOM?
Hold on. 5 years ago or more, I put a proposal on my discussion forum about Caribbean aviation called the CRANE, which suggested that the CARICOM governments get together and create an umbrella airline organization to which all of the other airlines would be franchises or affiliates, if you like, where everybody had the same livery, everybody painted the airplanes the same colors and logos and everything, all one name of airline, although they were individual companies. In other words, let us say Caribbean Airlines is the umbrella company, but not the Trinidadian one, Caribbean Airways, okay? Mm-hmm. Then Caribbean Airlines would become Caribbean Airways and paint their airplanes red. And LIAT would become Caribbean Airways and paint their airplanes red. Bahamas Air would become Caribbean Airways and paint their airplanes red, and so on and so on and so forth. And everybody could be part of the same organization. All the tickets would be Caribbean Airways, and so on and so on. Everybody would share the same fuel card. In other words, now you're buying fuel in bulk, but not in millions of gallons, but tens of millions of gallons. So you get a discount. Same thing with the immigration cards, with the uniforms, with the seat covers, with everything. And as before, as I did this time, I sent it to the prime ministers. I got no reply. I put it on my discussion forum. Nobody's interested. So I have come up with many more ideas than anybody else that I know of in the Caribbean for improving aviation in the Caribbean, and not just the eastern sub-region, but the entire Caribbean basin. And nobody's interested.
Interestingly
So
enough,
maybe somebody can tell me how I get these things across, but nobody's listening.
Interestingly enough, you wanted to paint those planes red. Let's enter.
No, I just.
No. I know. Listen to me first, and you'll understand where I'm going. Enter red. Oh, you know I'm going to red jet. Okay, and they had a tough time. I mean, in fact, I don't know, Nassief, how much do you know what happened with red jet?
No, I don't know much at all.
You don't know much at all.
I will tell you what happened with Red Jet. Red Jet was a foreign-owned company that came into the Caribbean with foreign executives and hired all foreign pilots and brought in foreign airplanes, and they wanted to become a local company.
So what's wrong with that?
Okay.
What's wrong with wanting to become a local company?
Hold on. They couldn't get into Jamaica because Air Jamaica was privatizing, and the Jamaican government didn't want to lose the premium they could got for the airline. When they were trying to sell it to Spirit Airlines and Caribbean Airlines, stole it out from under their noses. Okay, so they came to Barbados. Barbados, unfortunately, had Category 2, not Category 1. Mm-hmm. So in the first place, they could never fly from Barbados to the U.S. with a Barbados-registered airline. Okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Instead of taking proper advice from lawyers and aviation people, they raced ahead with their own plans. And when they were handed their AOC, their all-important piece of paper, the aircraft or airline operating certificate by the Director of Civil Aviation, my source tells me that they asked the retiring Director of Civil Aviation what else they needed to go to the other islands, and they were told, you need nothing more. Mm-hmm. And they kept on walking away, and they started up their thing, and they said, we're going to Trinidad. And guess what? Trinidad said, you ain't coming here because you haven't applied yet. So then Trinidad got their back up, and they said, who tell you say that? So they want to go to Trinidad, but they haven't even applied. And now they're advertising in Trinidad, they're advertising in Barbados. We go to Trinidad, come back to Barbados. But then the crapola hits the fanola, as I say, and they're not going to Trinidad anymore. And Trinidad, in fact, went overboard because Red Jet did a charter or more than one, to Trinidad, and the first airplane that landed was met by 6 of the TCAA inspectors, and they found problems with grease on the gear oleos. Grease on the gear oleos, they called it rust. They were so professional that they looked at grease and called it rust. Right? That is why they never went to Trinidad, and that is why they started to fail from that point.
But let's back up in a couple of things.
But the locals, if you come into a place, if I cannot go to the United States with a team of Barbadians or a team of Antiguans with an Antiguan registered aircraft, and I have all Antiguan or Barbadian executives, and start up a company in the United States. You can't do that. How come everybody else can come to the Caribbean and do as they like, but the reverse doesn't work, period?
But hold on, that's one side of the coin in terms of doing business in the Caribbean, because let's face it, we have other businesses that come to the Caribbean with exactly that structure and they work. So I don't get that, okay? But let's go to something else you said. You said that the Barbadians told them they didn't need anything else. Weren't they ill-advised by the government?
I didn't get that. Say again?
You said that the Barbados authorities told them they didn't need anything else and sent them on their way, were they ill-advised?
Yes, they were ill-advised.
Is that right?
That is what I was told, okay? I was not there. I did not hear
No, I hear you. And I heard the same thing.
Told.
No, I heard the same thing myself. So my point is, should authorities in position to give proper direction, isn't that almost a breach of your fiduciary responsibility?
It is, because you should not be asking him that. You should be doing your own research. You should have your lawyers and your aviation people looking at the law and saying X, Y, and Z is the case or X, Y, and Z is not the case. If you do your due diligence, you go to the Trinidad law and you look at the Trinidad law, and the Trinidad law says you must make application before you can fly into our country.
What about,
nobody did that.
What about CARICOM? Is CARICOM really of any use at all, even on this issue?
Now you're bringing me into an area where I get very loud. I'll tell you the truth.
No, you have permission to be. Go ahead. But in fact, let's take a break now, a final break, and we'll come back. So think of what you want to say, okay? This is time to face the facts, and we're looking at regional air transport. Don't go away. We're back with our final moments with our guests.
If you want the eyes and ears of your customers, then there's only one place, CaribVision, the authentic channel for all things Caribbean, bringing you Caribbean news, Caribbean sports, Caribbean entertainment, Caribbean travel, and festivals. Advertise on the CaribVision platform, reaching across the Caribbean in over 21 countries, and now in the U.S. market on Cablevision in the New York tri-state area, and coming soon to Canada and the United Kingdom. Email us at sales@cmccaribbean.com. CaribVision, the eyes and ears of the Caribbean.
Advantage inspires you to believe that the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. Business Advantage with host Jerry George, mentoring the next generation of Caribbean entrepreneurs. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays on www.niceradio.info. For further information, email caribbeaninformationhub@gmail.com. Like the Business Advantage Facebook page or call 1-784-456-5967 to participate.
Welcome back for remaining moments with Gregor Nassief with me in studio, and on a Google Hangout from Canada, Mr. James Lynch. Gentlemen, we have to come to the place that we've had several things put on the table, okay? How do we get the shareholders to listen, and how do we move forward? But Jim, you had some loud words on CARICOM.
Well, before 1975, I was running a small fast food restaurant in Barbados. And when we first took it over, we brought in a shipment of paper cups from the States, which had the logo and stuff on it. But when we ran out of those, we were told we couldn't bring any more in from the States. So when we looked around, the only people making paper cups were in Trinidad. So we started bringing cups from Trinidad, and very quickly we learned to stock up in advance to have a reserve, because sometimes they were available and sometimes they weren't. And they weren't printed, they were just standard paper cups. But importing stuff, I heard things about people trying to export to Trinidad. And for instance, things like food and whatever from the rest of the Caribbean and from Barbados would reach Trinidad, and they would sit on the docks for months. And if it was food, it would spoil. If it was plastic, it would melt because it was in the hot sun. The problem was, in the first place, it was very hard to get documentation to export. And when they got to the Trinidad Port of Spain docks, they would sit there because there was even more documentation to be done. But Trinidad is exporting all the rest of us, but the trade going the other way doesn't really work. They make it as difficult as possible for people to export to Trinidad. And that has been my experience in all the dealings between Trinidad and the rest of the CARICOM. is that Trinidad wants everything their way, but they don't want to give away anything.
So how does CARICOM, shouldn't CARICOM then have a role to play in that then? What do you think?
Yeah, but Trinidad is the bully in the room.
But we can't just keep blaming Trinidad. There's a whole regional treaty and a whole regional organization.
As I said, Trinidad is the bully in the room. You tell Trinidad anything and they start to pull back loans to the small islands. They start to pull back on trade. They start to pull back on favors and money that they're giving people. They make it difficult for your citizens to come into Trinidad, and so on and so on. Trinidad is the bully in the room. So you can go to all the CARICOM conferences you want. If Trinidad doesn't like it, it ain't happening.
So then CARICOM is weak and ineffective. Is that what you're telling me? Because
yes, CARICOM is weak and ineffective. If you want to hear it, yes, I'm saying it.
Well, okay. Gregor?
No, I don't. The Treaty of Chaguaramas was signed in Trinidad.
And it was resigned after 40 years in the middle of last year.
It was signed in Trinidad, but Trinidad doesn't respect it.
Gregor?
No. I'd like to focus on the core issue, that we've been speaking about. I mean,
yeah, he's not taking your trap, Jim.
No, I don't think I have much value to add on that issue. So, I think we essentially have three options in front of us for LIAT. One is for LIAT to stay as it is, for LIAT to continue to try to be all things to all people, and for the government subsidies to continue, and it will be financially unsustainable forever. It will continue to bleed our
treasuries.
Yes. And it will continue to also stifle competition. Okay? Service will continue to be poor, flights will not be on time, and this is that's option one. Option two is that the shareholders find a new vision for the airline focused on financial sustainability. LIAT becomes a smaller airline.